Welcome to the School Without Suffering podcast. I'm your host, Laura Fragamini, founder and principal of School Without Suffering. This season, I'm talking with community members who have firsthand experiences of suffering in school, sharing their perspectives as students, teachers, and parents. My hope is that these conversations show each of us that we are not alone and inspire us to envision and enact change for your individual family and for learners everywhere. Let's dive in. Today's conversation is with Carli Saber. Early in her career, Carli was a Montessori teacher. During her time in the classroom, she observed the clear abilities of her children as well as the limiting beliefs holding them back. Carli now works as a PSYCH-K Facilitator, helping parents and children to shift stress, anxiety, limiting beliefs, and lack of confidence due to learning difficulties to help clear the path to their full potential. This conversation invites all of us to think deeply about how school-related anxiety can develop at an early age and persist into adulthood, and what we can do to support the learners in our lives, including ourselves. I thoroughly enjoyed speaking with Carli, and I hope you enjoy listening. So you and I got connected in a Facebook group where I had put out a post asking folks to identify I had put up a post asking people if you identify with having struggled emotionally with school exams at any point in your life, or school in general, would you be interested in sharing your story on our podcast? And if you would, please get in touch. And so you did. You sent me a message, and you said how the post had really resonated with you from your own experiences at school, and also how many of the clients and teens that you work with today really stood out to you when you read this post. And so I'd love to just open by giving you the space to tell us more about the experiences that have brought you to the podcast today.
Sure, thank you so much. So I started my career going to university. I did education in psychology, and I loved learning about psychology. I'm still obsessed with the brain and all aspects of it, except being a psychologist, it just didn't resonate because I didn't really understand or feel that I could support people just talking one-on-one. Like I didn't really feel like that's going to really fix problems. And I thought, why not be a teacher? Because then we can set children up for success and they don't need to go to a psychologist. And then I went into a mainstream school. And I was like, this is why all these children need a psychologist. And I was just observing how things were run. And I started looking into the history of school. And it didn't really resonate with supporting human development, which is how I found Montessori. And I love her. I love Maria Montessori. If you don't know her, she's a philosopher. She speaks all about how children develop, how humans develop, and she basically created schools to support that. So that is how I started, and I just observed children even in the school system while I was a Montessori teacher. I just saw that a lot of children had all this anxiety, all this lack of confidence, and all this need to perform. And this is because it's very much in our society. You know, there's like competition, it's all about success. But when you drop that away, human beings, they love to work anyway, they love to socialize anyway, they love to connect anyway. So there's all of this pressure that was just made up, and all of these experiences that were just kind of not needing to be there, that was creating all this lack of confidence. So I have seen that. I see this with all my clients. I see it with parents. There's all this anxiety that is happening all the time. And yeah, I just kept on observing it. So that is where I started. I started by just observing this lack of confidence and this lack of anxiety that, you know, is real to the person who's sitting in it, but someone observing it, it's not really important, because in the end of the day, like, you can catch up any academic issues, or if you don't know your timetables, at the end of the day, it's not really going to matter when you're an adult, a fully formed adult in society, loving what you do and supporting what you do. But those experiences of not feeling good enough and not being good enough, those are those beliefs that you continue to have, and then they can show up in adulthood.
So much of what you just said about what you saw in the mainstream schools and how, it seemed like Montessori, which I will have you describe more for our listeners who don't know about it, but this educational model that is really designed to help solve for a lot of the problems that we see in mainstream education wasn't solving the problems. You were still seeing a lot of the same issues with anxiety, limiting beliefs, stress, because it comes so much from our culture, and how even with an educational model that is designed to naturally follow students or children's development, there's so much in how we as a society have structured things that make it really difficult for kids to escape. Can you tell us about how anxiety, stress, and limiting beliefs can get in the way of any of us at any age reaching our full potential? And then talk a little bit about how you saw those things being exacerbated in the classroom.
Sure. So firstly, it's about knowing the anxiety and understanding it. What happens before the age of around 7 or 6-ish, we take on all those societal pressures if we have them in our society, like you were just saying. Or we might have them genetically. We've just taken them on. So if your family's gone through a lot of stress, we might still be holding that gene in our body, even if we're living in an extremely safe environment. So what happens is we might not even be aware of why we have this anxious feeling. We might have just absorbed it. And what that meant is children that I observed and parents in any specific situation, if it's with relationship beliefs, money beliefs, learning beliefs, intelligent beliefs, something will happen that triggers this fight, flight, anxious response. And then people would go into either flee, I don't want to do this, shut down, or fight, get defensive. So I would see this with children all the time. I'd sit down to have this beautiful lesson, and they would just completely shut off, or they would get angry or defensive. And not always, and it would come in different ways of a lot of avoidance, but I was observing this bigger picture of, oh, that child is having a fight flight response to this subject. So, and when you're when you're in a fight with your friend, or you're in a fight with someone, or you're observing a fight, there's no point rationalizing or trying to support that person in that time, because you're in fight flight, you're not thinking or hearing. You have to come back into a calm space to have a discussion and find a compromise. And that's the same with learning. So when a child comes to a situation and their first response is, I'm bad at this, I'm not good at this, I have to be really good at this, or I'm going to fail and I'm not good at it, and all this overwhelm. They're already in this fight flight, which is blocking their ability to learn it. And our brain picks things up and observes things and connects things together. So if a child has had a situation in preschool, in kindy, every single time they go to school, they can be easily triggered again and again, and our brain associates things. So if you're anxious with working on something and then you're sitting with a friend who's talking to you, that connects to the anxiety of friends at school. So it can really spread quite widely and become big and become really intense.
What I always tell parents, and what I also always teach our students, and I'm sure this is something you talk about with your clients too, is exactly what you just said about the associations our brain makes being where that anxiety comes from. So in the moment, we may be freaking out about a late math assignment or something like that, but what our brain is actually reacting to, and we talk to our students about their amygdala and their hippocampus and all that stuff. And so what we explain is your hippocampus has all of these memories stored, and this math assignment has made one pop up in your brain, and that from maybe a very long time ago, or maybe several times in your history with school, math assignments being late have been stressful for some reason. And so your brain has learned that when this comes up, you're in a dangerous situation and it needs to tell the amygdala to sound the alarm. And now your amygdala is sounding the alarm, and now your brain and body are going crazy, and it feels impossible to focus on anything. So that's what's happening. Just like you said, it's not that you're actually in danger. So then the question is, what do we do about it? And so that's where, we'll work with the students on strategies. And like you said, there's a million ways to learn to overcome this reaction that is inbuilt in our brain. And I love how you said at the beginning too, it's there to keep us safe. It actually does amazing things. It can make us run way faster than we otherwise could to escape danger. It's what keeps us safe. And it's actually something that to be valued. We don't need to hate this part of ourselves. It's there. It does make things difficult sometimes, so we need to learn to work with it. But it is normal. What, if anything, did you see in the school environment that was exacerbating the students' anxiety or limiting beliefs, or just stress response that was hindering them from learning? And if nothing was going so far as to exacerbate it, then what did you see in the environment that wasn't helping?
So I think I'm very sensitive to more the unseen and unheard things that are happening. So, I was observing, it was my placement, that is the word. I was observing, like, the children would come in, there'd be one lesson, then another lesson, then a break, then another lesson, then another lesson. And on paper, observing, it looked really fine. But, you have a whole lot of children who have all different ages and stages. So a group of those children weren't actually learning much because they already knew it. A group of those children were so lost and had no idea what was really happening. And then a group maybe in between where it was on their level. But then the children who had finished in a moment, they needed something to do. So then they had finished. The children who needed hours and hours of time, that 1 hour went really quickly. The other children are talking, so they're getting distracted and also drawing. So, how can you focus when all these other children are talking and drawing, and then just sheet after sheet of unfinished work was, going into their workbooks, glued into their workbooks. And it just didn't. So I was seeing a group of children, it being a waste of time, and thinking, oh, this is so easy. I don't need to be smart. I mean, I'm so smart, I don't need to be pushed. So this is what they were psychologically being told. A group of children being like, oh, I can't finish on time. I can't focus, and, maybe the middle group. And that was completely, obviously, always changing. I also saw how in a mainstream school, and it's now different in different schools, and they are expanding. And, I was obviously guided to be where I'm meant to be because the placement and the teacher I had was extremely old school. But it was still the culture of the school. It was very much like, if you do this, you get a sticker. If you do this, you get this. And like, I remember children looking at me and doing things in front of me to get validation, to get stickers, to make me feel that they are really good as a child or a student. Psychologically, it can be so harming to children, and they're physically saying, oh, do this to get a sticker, but what they're psychologically saying is, do this to make me happy because the world's all about making other people happy. Yeah. So that was in a mainstream school. In a Montessori school, and this is why I absolutely loved it, is it spoke all about the psychological impact you have as a teacher, as a guide. You're not even a teacher, you're a guide, because children learn anyway. You don't need to teach them, you show them, and they do it independently. They are with a whole group of children of different ages and stages, and that culture is created to not have any of those mainstream limiting beliefs that I spoke about, because it's not about any external rewards. It's all about like supporting them to be independent. But what I saw is that it was still, a Montessori school was still in the realms of the curriculum requirements of the state. And therefore, that culture was creeping in. And the more I had to put it in, the more that culture became more mainstreamy because it's set up to be easy to do that. And the more I had to do that and fight against this Montessori system, and the more stressed I became, the more I was not this supportive, best person that I could be with my children. So it's like the teacher has to be the best and less anxious. The children will pick that up. But these things that are created can be very stressful for the teacher. The teacher's just like, I need to tick it off. The child receives that energy when they have to do this thing. And then I was seeing that in my school and my system to the extent that I got so anxious, and it was awful for me, that I had to leave. And I only left when I found PSYCH-K, which was this perfect fairy experience that came to me.
Often when we have conversations about how do we solve these problems, a lot of those conversations can get focused on instructional model, of which Montessori is one. And we just need to find the right instructional model. And if we do things like Montessori does and follow the natural development of the child and individualize learning and get rid of like staunch grade levels where students have to move through at a certain time, then we'll be okay. And what we're hearing from your experience is, yeah, those models are great. They have great potential maybe, but on the ground, this is what's happening. We still live in the society in which we live, in which success is measured by money, in which you have to make money to survive and then beyond surviving to do well. And those are all messages that we get from the moment we enter the world. And so we know that as a teacher, you're living that. This is your job. You have expectations from your bosses, which go all the way up to the state government level, telling you what you need to achieve. You're trying to do the best thing you can by kids. You're also trying to meet the expectations of your job so you can make the paycheck that you need to live, so that you can do well in your career, so that, because you have all of the same pressures that we're talking about the school system puts on kids. You went through the school system, mm-hmm. You have a job, mm-hmm. Like we're all the same, right? So there's no, we focus on this instructional model. We focus on like the idea of teachers, and teachers have to do this and teachers have to do that. But we're all people living with the existing power structures that guide our lives. And so we can change things like the instructional model, but we can still see these problems because they're bigger than just the classroom. They're bigger than just the teacher. They're bigger than just an individual student. Are you considering a different educational environment for your child? School Without Suffering's virtual school serves students from elementary through high school, offering developmentally appropriate, comprehensive curriculum that aligns with academic standards while nurturing individual passions and strengths. During each step of their academic journey, we help students master their mindset and their lessons, cultivate compassion for themselves and others, develop their values, and acquire the skills they need to thrive. Our expert teachers employ innovative teaching methods and technology to create engaging and interactive learning experiences for every student. Enrollment in the School Without Suffering virtual school is month to month, allowing for maximum flexibility in meeting your child's unique needs. And with tuition in line with the national average for private schools and a pay-what-you-can option for those who need it, this life-changing educational opportunity is within reach for your family. Download your free parent guide at www.schoolwithoutsuffering.com/guide. That's www.schoolwithoutsuffering.com/guide. Okay, we're talking about all these problems that school is causing our students, but we're sitting here as functional adults. We're doing fine. Why are we saying this is such a big such a big issue? Like, what is actually the big deal?
Well, I mean, it is a big deal. Like, we are fine, but we're in a situation where mental health is one of the biggest issues in the world. It's like it's a huge epidemic. It's like suicidal rates, like teen angst. It is the biggest issue going on in society. And if that is like technology, pressure, like there is something that we're doing that's not working because our nervous systems cannot handle it. And you spend a lot of time at school. You spend a lot of time learning how to be a functional person in the community. That's what school is about. And if it's not really giving you and setting you up for those successful experiences to be happy and joyful when you leave school, then what is the point? And really, for me, it's like, what is the point? Because yes, I'm working with so many parents and so many clients, if it's their relationships and their lack of ability to connect with others because of their insecurities, and all of them stem from this repetitive experience that they probably would have experienced from the culture of school. Not probably, because there's so many ways, but you're spending so much time at school, so you would have had many memories. So yeah, like I see it for more the mental health realm, and like we all were fine, but why did we all have to go through these like awful experiences to be happy when we could have had all these ways to be set up to be happy and know that we're happy?
It's like, okay, yes, some of us are fine, but we're fine in spite of the experiences we had growing up, being educated by the system that is teaching us, in a lot of cases, unhealthy habits, unhealthy beliefs. And then a lot of us are not fine, even if we seem like it on the surface. I'd love to hear if you can share any success stories or any stories of where people learning how to respond to their anxiety and limiting beliefs in a more healthy way in general. What are you seeing from clients, and then when they come to you, and then what are you seeing from them once they learn these techniques that we're talking about? We would love to see students leaving school with these skills that you're talking about.
I actually work with one child in particular who really has a lot of anxiety around school. And I was working with them one week, and then the next week I was like, what are we going to work on? And he was just talking and speaking and telling me all these things. I was like shocked. I was like, oh my God, like, and then I looked back at our old PSYCH-K session, and it was all about like, I'm safe to tell the truth. I'm safe to speak my feelings. And we did all these beliefs around speaking your truth, which is like, it shocked me because I saw him the next week, and I didn't remember what we went through. And then I was like, oh my goodness, like this child has completely changed. So just setting him up to express himself through the subconscious beliefs that maybe he took on, if it was preschool, or that he had taken on from family members, that you're allowed to get your needs met at school, were helping him. And I saw that change. Like, he just became so much more talkative. I was like, oh, is he like more connected to me? So your beliefs and your actions, once you shift and change them, hopefully they'll set you up for success wherever you are. So I've seen that in a lot of like children that I've worked with and adults that I've worked with. But I will always make sure that I see a parent before I see children, because parents project a lot of their own fears and anxiety, or their own experiences from school or life onto their children. And as soon as that they let go of the stress, they'll be saying, I've just been working with you. You haven't even worked with my child. But they're like, everyone's coming and telling me my child's so happy now. And then they're realizing that it had nothing, the child wasn't the problem. It was them and the stress that they had, that they were then projecting onto the child.
Yeah, I think in a lot of cases we think we've made it out fine. But we have all these beliefs about school that we don't even realize maybe how they're affecting us. And then when we become parents, we project those ideas, and those influence how our kids do in school. There are a lot of things that we can do as individuals to learn about what's going on with ourselves subconsciously and train ourselves to think the ways that we need to think and feel the ways that we need to feel and do the things that we need to do to get to where we want to go. And that's hugely, hugely important. And there are lots of places that we the collective we of the planet come together as individuals to do something bigger, like educate our youth. Like we come together as people, as individuals, to build school systems, to create school environments, to set goals, and to try to achieve them together. And if we can keep in mind, top of mind, when we're doing those things, collectively, what we've learned about our own selves, where did these, and start to think about where did these beliefs come from? What can we do to make it easier for the next generation to not learn those beliefs? What are we currently doing that makes it harder for them to unlearn those beliefs? Or what are we doing that are reteaching these beliefs over and over again? If we can keep those things top of mind, then we can also do work collectively to help make a huge difference in each other's lives. And I think that's true whether we are
Change the culture.
Adults. Yeah. Talking about adults, we can make this easier on ourselves. We can also make it easier on the kids who are coming up. So in that spirit, I'd love to ask you, so when you bring yourself to this collective work, what's at top of mind for you?
So the two things is like, as a parent, yes, it's going to take time to unschool yourself and integrate these new ideas. But if you keep on really understanding them, and teachers and parents, then the more that we understand it, the more we're telling and sharing those lessons with children. And as you said, it changes culture. So if parents and teachers and children are like, we love learning, learning is about doing X, Y, and Z, and bringing more this love instead of competition, that is when it slowly changes, and that's when the children see. So what I would love to see in schools and out of schools, and what I'm already seeing, is children kind of acknowledge and understand education in a way that brings them love and joy. You know, we love learning, we love making things better. The world is the way it is because of the human brain always trying to think of new things to develop. We love, you know, listening to podcasts, understanding how we can be better, do better. So just instilling that more in our children. We probably are, if that's naturally in us, but letting go of that, oh, we need to read, we need to write, we need to hit this milestone, and we need to get these grades, and really just letting it go and allowing, you know, more of that like developmental flow in a way, you know, that's balanced and respectful. And that is when where I really love Montessori, because I think she did it well. So that's what I would love to see, that whole different culture shift and change. As well as the PSYCH-K element of it, which is this anxiety, people really working on their own beliefs, their limitations, their understanding. And, you know, some teachers have heard, some educators have heard some of my talks, and they say, oh, I know all that. But then I've observed them and they're not integrating it. And they obviously haven't integrated it because they still haven't really, they just want to make those children feel better, or, you know, they haven't really had their own experiences to then integrate and share it naturally with the child. So really, for adults to be doing work, if it's subconscious work, meditation, understanding, their triggers, their limits, and how they can best serve themselves, because then they know how to serve and support their children. And the last thing is for children to get those skills. They are never too young. The conversations that children can have, I've spoken to 2 children who had a fight over a remote, but it is never about the remote. And one child who was like 6 or nearly 7, they're like, well, I just really feel unheard. Like a 7-year-old saying, I just feel unheard is like so amazing, but they have been in a situation where they've really gotten a space to reflect and go, what's deeper here?
Yeah.
And when children start doing that, it is incredible. And just that notion is like, you can overcome your anxiety. It is a part of our brain, and it's always going to happen. We can't get, anxiety and stress in any emotional way. We don't live in a utopia, but we can overcome it. We can observe it and go, oh, I'm feeling anxious about this. Oh, I'm feeling stressed about this. Oh, I'm feeling annoyed about this. What is really here, and what do I need to shift and change? Because as soon as they know that they can do it, they can just implement that in every subject. If it's educational, if it's a fight in the classroom, if it's a fight in the playground, if they're a homeschooler and they, are going out and wanting to do things in society, if it's a learning difficulty or a disability, once you kind of bring this acceptance to yourself, and yourself, and you can overcome your anxiety, then, you're going to live. You're going to live obviously better, because instead of being like, this is only me, I am stuck and bound by my issues, you kind of are empowered to know that there's ways to come out of those dark holes.
If you'd like to learn more about Carli's work or get in touch, find her on Instagram at carli.saber. That's CARLI.SABER. You can also find links to her free tools, including a talk on homeschooling, in the show notes for this episode. Next episode, you'll hear from a current high school student, 16-year-old Avery Wooldridge, who shares her perspective on going through school with anxiety and depression. If you've ever wished you could understand more about what the students in your life may be experiencing, you won't want to miss it.